This is the Horse Radio Network.
This is episode 247 of the Dressage Radio Show on the Horse Radio Network, brought to you by Kentucky Performance Products.
This is Reese Koffler-Stanfield from Georgetown, Kentucky.
This is Philip Parks from Fergus, Ontario, and you're listening to the Dressage Radio Show. With our producer back, I think it's been many weeks, it seems like many weeks since talking to him, Glenn.
Hey, guys. It's good to be back. And Philip, actually, I didn't have a choice. Philip sent me a note and said, you will be with us.
You will be.
Well, it was kind of like, no, it was, will you? Yeah, okay. Word order is so important when you're writing emails.
English.
Yeah, it is really.
Will you? You will? Yeah.
You will. You will.
I did miss you. I had some other obligations. We've had when you live in Florida, the entire month of February becomes all your family visiting month.
Visit people in Florida month, right?
Yeah.
We did that. We did that as well. We can't talk about that. Okay.
Yeah, we did that to our friends Heidi and Mike, and they were wonderful hosts. They have a beautiful new house in Florida. So Philip and I were like, okay, can we come and stay? Actually, they offered, which was really kind. And but if we had been any closer to you, Glenn, we would have come up to visit, and we would have been those people. Next winter, we're coming up.
You guys, I think we've had every relative we know decided to come in February, run right after another, and it's like, okay, you guys can spread it out a little now next time.
Well, it's
I keep hearing about
beautiful weather, right?
Exactly. I keep hearing about Disneyland, and I want to go next winter.
Well, you definitely have to come down. We'll take you down to Disney. I was there today, actually. I was there. We have friends that we have friends that came in, and when friends come in, they all go to Disney, and then we have annual passes, so we just go meet them there.
Oh, fun!
So we met them there and spent half a day there with them, and it was fun.
Cool. Well, deal. Well, we did. We just got back, Philip and I, from Wellington, and wow, did we have a great time.
What a crazy weekend. It seems like I got no rest at all.
I know, I don't feel like it either. But before we jump into the Global Dressage Forum North America and our wrap-up, we have some awesome news that literally just came over Facebook. And Courtney King-Dye and her husband Jason just welcomed an 8-pound, 4-ounce baby girl at 3 p.m. today. Everybody is healthy and doing well. So I'm sure we'll get a picture. Yay!
Congratulations, Courtney. Yeah, fantastic.
Very excited for them. They're a wonderful family. And how exciting. I'm sure they are beautiful people. So I'm sure they've had a beautiful baby girl. So looking forward to some updates and to talking to Courtney about being a mom. How exciting.
Should we start a pool to see how long it is till the kid's in the saddle? I predict 2 weeks.
2 weeks?
Yeah.
I think that's probably about right. Yeah. She's probably going to piaffe on her first ride.
Yeah.
Like her mom. It's very exciting. So that literally just came over before. It wasn't even in our show notes. So we wanted to put it in first thing, and I'm sure it's going to go all over everywhere. So we wanted to thankfully I'm on her Facebook page. So I got some information. So that was exciting.
Good for her.
Yeah. So Philip, are we ready to talk about the Global Dressage Forum North America?
I don't know if I've processed the whole weekend yet. I haven't had a minute to sit down and really think about it, but we had an amazing time, and what a fantastic event. I mean, right from when we got there, I mean, for me anyways, right from, like the presentation was incredible, and then, from trainer to trainer to trainer, just, all this great information and all this wonderful stuff and riding, and like I said, it was a little overwhelming, but awesome. Cool.
Yeah, I've kind of been telling people when they've asked me, how our weekend was, and we went to the forum obviously to cover the event for the radio show. So it was very much a working weekend for us. We got some time to play and see friends, but really we were pretty busy the whole time. Went to all the events, and there were a lot of events. And then I keep telling people it was like a cruise. Like a Caribbean cruise where you stop at every island for a little while and you find out which island you want to go back to. So that was kind of how I'm describing it, because it really was. It was 2 days, and it was really jam-packed of events, and there was something pretty much all the time.
Yeah, there was something for everybody. I mean, that's for sure. And not just riding, but saddle fitting and different kinds of focus in the riding. Not just trainers, but centered riding presentations. Suzanne von Dietz. I mean, when people ask me like, "Oh, who did you go and see?" I was like, "Well, this person, like all these famous riders, presenters, and trainers." And it was so cool. So I think instead of going through all the presentations, I know that Reese, you were taking a ton of notes. We did have a listener question or somebody that was specifically interested in Jan Brink's presentation on kind of on getting on a horse for the first time or evaluating a horse for the first time, and he was brought a horse from Brendan Curtis, actually, the horse that Brendan Curtis, USA born Hanoverian, I believe, or Oldenburg, and that Jan basically got on for the first time and gave his kind of ideas about how to just get it on a horse and evaluate it, and where do you go with the training. So maybe we could just talk about that today, and maybe get to some other topics later next month or something.
Sure, absolutely. So he was great. Jan Brink was actually probably my personal favorite presenter. I think, Philip, you also really enjoed him. First of all,
I mean, I have a thing for Jan Brink.
Yeah, he loves Jan Brink. And by the way,
Reese, you have a Charlotte Desjardins thing. I've had a Jan Brink thing, so that was really exciting. I've never had the opportunity to see him, live in person, other than when he was riding Briere, and so I was really excited, and it was one of the first things in the forum, so we kind of got right to it, and it was cool, and so maybe Reese, you could we could talk a little bit about some of the things that he discussed and that he brought to the forum with him.
Absolutely. And plus, ladies, I'm just going to say he's not hard to look at. He's precious. He's a nice. I know why.
How am I gonna when have I ever get to say, oh wow, she's super hot or whatever? I guess I got
mostly ladies.
Glenn here with.
It never works that way, Philip. We can't get away with that, but they can.
Say it, right?
Yeah, I know,
it
exactly.
Work that way. But yes, I'm being sexist because he is precious. He is precious. I'm just saying. So
let's get to the riding, Reese.
We're getting to the riding. Focus, Reese. Focus. Okay. So one of the things that I thought was really interesting with Jan Brink is that he essentially has, I don't know if he's retired from his international career, but he mainly is focusing on training and training riders and training horses, which I thought was really cool to hear him say that he couldn't have, when he was competing Briere, he couldn't really be competing internationally and do justice to his business at home and to his whole training program. So now he's doing that, and he basically has developed a program, and he kept talking about a nursery for young riders and horses. And so he's basically developed a nursery, and they have camps, and riders will come, I think, to his training facility or where he works, and they will spend some good amount of time there with him, which was pretty cool. And then he talked about the training scale, which I found was very interesting because all the presenters in one form or another talked about a training scale. It may have been slightly different, but essentially it was a training scale that we use in the U.S. as well. So I thought that was cool. But one thing that really resonated with me was he had a lot of he had a way of thinking about training riders and horses. And that was, you have 3 zones, 3 mental thoughts. You have the comfort zone, you have the stretching zone, and you have the panic zone. And I've been thinking about this. I thought about this on the way home from the program. And that was, when you are training a rider, or even yourself when you're training your horse, it sometimes it's nice to be in the comfort zone. Sometimes that's not a bad deal.
It's always nice to be in the comfort zone.
Yeah. There are times. Yeah, we all like the comfort zone. There's times where.
But you're not going to get anything done in the comfort zone, Reese.
Right.
You're not going to go anywhere, right?
You're not going anywhere.
Stuck in the same place in the comfort zone all day.
Exactly. So his point was, you need to stretch yourself. You need to move into the stretching zone where you're stretching yourself to learn, to do new things. Maybe put a little.
Yeah, it's kind of a challenge zone, a place where you're not, the horse and rider are not panicking. But you're getting out of your own comfort zone and trying something new or pushing the limit of something you already know. So, that was good to talk about, because we always talk about, relaxation and, it should be harmonious and all that. But, when we're working and we're developing new skills and we're developing our horses, muscles and things like that, you have to stretch beyond that a little, sometimes, a little bit and to make a challenge, right? And yeah. Yeah, you have to go there, right? If you don't go there, then you don't go anywhere. Right.
And one of his quotes that I really liked is, sometimes it doesn't start well. but that doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. He said sometimes it doesn't start well, but it'll end well. And I think that that's what he's talking about in stretching zone. You know, sometimes you start something and you think, oh my God, this isn't going to work. But over time, you just take time and it will work. So I thought that was interesting.
You work through it. You stay a little bit away from the comfort zone, stay in the stretching zone for a time until it becomes, eventually your stretching zone will become the comfort zone. And then you have to move to the new stretching zone. And I think that's a good description about how the horses can learn to develop and how riders can learn to develop to present new challenges and achieve them by good repetition and staying there a little bit. So that was really cool.
It was really cool. But he talked about the panic zone, and essentially you're never really supposed to be in the panic zone. That is not a place that, we've all been there. I had it happen to me today. I was working an exercise from the forum that I was trying, and my big Cody was like, I can't do it. And I could feel it. And I was stretching. I was definitely pushing the limit today. I felt like it was the right kind of day. It was nice and warm. And I was like, come on now, we're going to try this. And he was like, panic. And you have to really know how to handle that. And sometimes you have to say, come on. And sometimes you need to say, okay, I'm pushing this a little bit too hard. So I think that that's always an interesting, you never want to be there. And when you get there, and we've all been there, if you're stretching in the stretching zone and push it a little too far, that you need to know what to do when you get in there. So I thought that was a really good way. He was very concise in talking about that. And he talked about it throughout his whole hour and a half talk. Philip, another really good section of Jan Brink's talk, he talked about the 3 control points. And I thought that these were extremely interesting. And he also used his rider to demonstrate that. But the 3 control points he talked about were the track, the rhythm, and the control line. So if you can elaborate a little bit on that, we'll go from there.
Well, the track is deciding, I think a little bit like what kind of, are you going to be doing shoulder in? Are you going to be doing, 2-track, 3-track, 4-track, are you doing leg yield? It's all the different tracks that we ride in all the gates. And then the rhythm, obviously, I think we talked so much about rhythm. It's the first step in the training scale. So you have to be able to control the rhythm. And then the third thing is the control line. So are you riding a circle? Well, that's a line. Are you riding a diagonal? That's a line. Are you riding a long side or a short side or a corner? These are all lines. And you have to be able to control all of these things while you make your way around the arena. This is how, when you take your first step, your first step has a track, it has a rhythm, and it has a line. So you have to be able to first decide, what are you doing, right? And then decide, that is the horse paying attention to you on all of these things. So, as you're riding down the long side, that's the line. Are you going to be in 2-track? Just straight ahead? Are you going to be in 3-track? And what kind of rhythm would you like? And you can mix it up as you make your way down the line, but you have to control these things. Don't let your horse control those things. So this is right back to detailed riding. You have to know where the horse is placing their legs, and you have to know how they're placing their legs, and that has to be your decision to make. So I think we can relate these things back towards, him getting on this horse for the first time. I mean, the first thing that he said is that you've got to have a relaxed horse. So in that way, you've got to, when you first get on and you go walking away, you have to, the horse has to show you where they're comfortable a little bit, right? Does that make sense, Reese? That they, wherever they place their head, you can't change that right away because you're going to maybe go to the stretching or right away to the panic zone, right? And you don't get on a horse and take it to the panic zone and start deciding, I'm going to do this and that. You're going to do this. I think he just got on and he just let the horse move and he let the horse show him, the horse's natural balance, and just until, because it was a youngish horse. I think it was 6 or maybe 7.
Yeah. And she was really.
This was a huge audience in front of it. Yeah. There were speakers. There was cameras. There's everything you can think of in a big show and more, because he had a rider on top of him that was also talking, right? And the wind was, going in the mic, and there's lots of noise.
She'd waited a long time. We were a little bit late, and I think she'd been ridden like 45 minutes ahead of time.
Had been warmed up a little bit by his rider. But then Jan got on and said, okay, now I just want to relax this horse. And so he was riding and trot, he was riding and walk, and a little bit of canter, and really not doing a whole lot, right? Like just feeling the horse, starting the partnership from kind of square one. And I think that's what you have to do. I mean, this is a nicely trained, really super young horse and everything. So I mean, the horse was on the bit, but when I get on a horse, I'm not going to say, okay, you do this now, you're on the bit, whatever. I mean, you just have to let the horse show you, and if they want to put their head up, fine. If they want to put their head way down, fine. You have to accept the horse's natural way of going, so that they become comfortable with their new rider. And then what was next? You said, was it rhythm control, right? Maybe
rhythm control. And basically, he talked about rhythm control. And that was kind of a theme, I would say, through most of the presenters. They talked about rhythm control and being able to control the rhythm. And I thought that was really interesting, that was an overall theme with it. So that was interesting when he said, I need to be able to control the rhythm. And with this particular mare, again, like Philip said, she was really tense and there was a lot going on. And so it took him a little while to be able to control the rhythm. But actually, by the end of the presentation, I mean, he even did some half steps on the mare. She was really talented, which I thought, I was like, no way. When he first got on the horse, I thought, there is no way he's going to be able to do this. But he was just very clear with his aids. He actually made the comment, which I thought was interesting. I made a note that 70% of all horses aren't in front of the leg in aids. And I thought, he's totally right. Like, I mean, I would say of most of the horses that I get on that aren't mine, I mean, I'm pretty on it with my own horses, but when I get on, they're not in front of the leg and they're not in front of the seat, which affects the rhythm. So I thought that was interesting when he gave that stat.
He started out just by making transitions between the gaits and then lots of transitions within the gaits. And we saw that from every single rider, like
every single one
back, riding them forward, bringing them back, riding them forward. The adjustability on the horse is so important. And then for the young horses, they got into a little bit. And then for the advanced horses, they go right from piaffe to extended. I mean, there's a huge range that you have to be able to ride in an advanced horse. So you gotta stretch it out. So he stayed in the comfort zone for a while until the horse got used to everything. He was there for a while, and then it became the stretching zone, and he worked really well with the horse. I mean, the horse, he got to know the horse. He didn't get on and impose his will on it. He got on and he got to know the horse, and then he just tried a few things. Right? He wasn't like, you're going to do this now. Like, okay, you're relaxed, you're ready. He was just like, and it was just kind of a really nice development of the horse. And like you said, until the horse was doing half steps, it was almost as if it was just a slow, steady transformation. And every time he asked a little bit more. Right? It was the same question, just, can you do a little bit more? Can you come back a little bit more? Can you go forward a little bit more? And it made sense to the horse, and that's how it flowed so well from a horse that was a little nervous, new rider. Oh my goodness, what's going on? And then boom, by the end, they were just working together, and
it was great.
And the canter almost, like a little of some working canter steps. I mean, he took it to that level, but he took the time to know the horse and to know what to do. So I think that's great advice if you're looking to know. What do I do when I get on a new horse? Well, I think the biggest thing was just listen to the horse.
And take your time.
And then when you listen to the horse, you can find out what is their stretching zone. Every horse has a different, mental capacity or for learning and physical ability for learning. So, don't impose your will. Work with the horse.
Right.
Figure out, where the weak points are. Work on it a little bit, and pay attention to the training skill to find out, what you can improve on.
Yeah, and he talked about also just the use of his legs. That you have to use your legs to help keep the rhythm, which I thought was really, and that was kind of going back to the behind the leg thing. The horse has to be on your aids and listening to your leg and your seat, and your leg and your seat create the activity, and you need to be able to have the activity to change the rhythm and not change the stride. So I thought that was an interesting. He very much talked about that. Which was good. And then we talked about just control the line, which was his third point. And he talked because he must teach a lot of young riders or a lot of U25 riders. And I also teach a lot of that group. So that was really interesting to me. And, he's talking about controlling the line, but this also goes to control to teaching flying changes. So he brought it, and basically, as you teach flying changes, these riders have already worked on controlling the line, so they understand that like when you go on the diagonal, you're basically riding through a tunnel, and if you ride through the tunnel, and then at the end of the tunnel or the end of the diagonal, you can easily ask for the flying change without coming out of the tunnel. So I thought that was an interesting analogy.
Really channeling the horse down that line, not wandering around the ring. That's something to be important. In detailed riding, you have to really be riding every day. KXM. I mean, it kind of sounds no brainer, but you watch
You'd be
riders
amazed,
training, and that slowly, degrades as every time the rider rides across a diagonal. If they're not really paying attention to that detail, it becomes a very unstraight line, and that's one of those things that we got to watch. When we leave the track, when we leave the wall, do the horses wander around? Ride second track, ride third track, ride quarter line. Every day to kind of make sure that the rider is in charge of the lines and not the horse pushing against the little white fences or the arena walls. So.
Well, and I don't know about you, Philip, but a lot of my riders don't have a ring, so they ride out in the field, or they have a big jumping ring. A lot of my eventers don't necessarily have the white fence, and I tell them, I'm like, you have to go in the fence, you have to go in the arena because you don't know if you're riding a proper 10-meter circle if you don't ever have to go in the boards. And so I guarantee, and that 10-meter circle is worth 10 points. So, if you don't ride the circle, I can guarantee you're losing some points just on that particular, just that particular movement or all of them. So I thought that was really interesting. And some of the other thoughts as I'm going through my notes that he talked about is he says, and I agree with him, you need to understand some theory. And I think that there is a balance here. Certainly you can understand a lot of theory and not be able to ride, and you can ride and not understand any theory. So I think that there's a nice balance out there. And I thought, that's what he was trying to do with his young riders, is trying to help them develop some theory and understand, why. And if you're listening to the show, you're probably already into that and learning some theory. And we certainly try to provide some, Philip and I, so that you can get it. So he was
talking about, I remember this. He was talking about, clinics and stuff where it's frustrating for a coach of riders to host a clinic or to be at a clinic, and then, a rider comes in, does their lesson, and packs up and leaves.
Right.
He says, it's, if you're there anyways, why not wait or, watch a couple of lessons, so to help you process maybe what you just learned or what you're going to learn before you ever get it right. If you're the last rider of the day, show up early. Hey, maybe there's some stuff that, like a trainer doesn't want to go to a clinic or be doing lessons and explain something 10 times to the 10 riders that are at that clinic, right? Wouldn't it be nice just to, in the first rider, if he's got a concept that's really important to him, that if he explained it once in the first ride, that the next person would have been there to see it, that they're ready, or and so on and so forth. So I thought that was, adding a little bit of theory, and just education from the ground is almost as important as education on the saddle, if not just to save time in a lesson or to get a little bit more out of your own lesson by, because as trainers, we all have certain things we like to pick on, right? And so if you can reaffirm something that you just learned by watching it from the ground, haven't you just learned twice as much? Or, so that I thought that was a good point and an interesting thing to get all you can from each clinician or each lesson or even your own. If you have a regular coach that comes in twice a week or whatever, watch a lesson, see if you can learn something. It doesn't hurt. It couldn't hurt, right?
Right. And this happened to me this week. As we all who have not been in Florida and we've been up north, is I had a student come in and said, well, I want to learn shoulder in. And I said, sure. But she didn't know anything about shoulder in, and hers is ready. I mean, it wasn't an off the wall question. And I said, okay, what are the aids for shoulder in? And she's like, well, no, which is fine. I certainly don't mind taking the 45 minutes.
You can always take the time to do it, to teach it. And
no problem. But it would have been great. And she would have saved a little bit of time in her lesson to go to the actual riding part of it. And that was, if you want to know something, how do I ride shoulder in or how do I ride haunches in? There's lots of information out there. So even
especially
just to
these
read
days
a little,
with the resources, I remember, being able to pick up books at the tack store and learn that way because, obviously the internet wasn't as developed. But, at least it's a start, right? You have a picture in your head and an idea in your mind, and then you can go from there. Because it's there's no secrets. Like, I don't know any secrets that hasn't been published a billion times already by a billion different trainers. It's not keeping some kind of secret knowledge to yourself. It's all available. It's all out there. So
and so if you do, I wasn't picking on her at all. I don't mean that. I just she wanted that at her lesson this week, and I literally haven't seen her since before Christmas because we haven't been able. This week is the first week, that people are sort of back riding here, and starting to get serious and wanting to get some help. And I thought, when I read this when we were prepping for the show, I thought, gosh, if she would have wanted to know that, it would have been great for her to have come in and said, okay, I read it online, and this is what I know, but I really want to do it. So I'll find that she didn't, but it certainly,
I think that's a young brain coming from teaching juniors and young riders. That's a little bit of a junior young rider kind of thing that you will come across, right? Because we just don't think of being able to access all this information as adults.
Right. And it's all out there. And it takes time too, and all that stuff. But anyways, his other point going on the junior young riders, which I thought was interesting, is when you're young, or sometimes, even when you have one horse, you think, I need it now. I need it right now. And as you get older,
the impatience of youth, right?
Yeah. Or more experienced, or for me now that I've trained more horses, I know when is time to push and when it isn't time. And sometimes I don't know, and I have to call Philip and say, am I doing something wrong here? But his basic point was, it takes a long time to make a horse. And if you want it now, you're maybe in the wrong sport, but you have to learn that you can't have it right now. There are steps and there are theory and then there is stuff that sort of is in the way, and not in the way, but you need to work on that. So I thought that was a really interesting, kind of take from him.
Well, there's no way to get out of paying your dues, right?
No, on all of us, on any horse, And then his other one was, and again, he was focused from young riders, but treat a horse like a horse. A horse isn't a machine. It takes a lot of time. And he mentioned, he'll ask his young riders, what's the breeding of your horse? And they won't know. And I thought it was really interesting that he made note of that. These are all really important things, and it made me come back and think, gosh, what are the bloodlines of that horse? And I should really look them up. And, it doesn't take very long.
It was just, I think the discussion point there was just like, if you really want to ride well, or it maybe takes a little bit extra to have a genuine interest in horses. I think it's a hard kind of concept to describe, but he said if you're really crazy, if you're young, you should be horse crazy, right? You should want to know everything and take in everything, and just bloodlines is an example of wanting to educate yourself just beyond sitting in the saddle, but wanting to know all aspects of riding and horse care and horse breeding, and it's. It's cool. Obviously he's coming from a place where he does teach a lot of juniors, young riders, so he had a lot of points of discussion around that. So it was cool.
But it really was a great lecture overall, and I was really inspired by him. I can see why you have a man crush on him, Philip. I get it. I thought he was phenomenal. I'd never seen him coach or teach. I felt like he was the first one out of the gate, and I thought, okay, this is awesome. And he was by far my favorite, besides Conrad Schumacher, who is my coach. But it was this was something I'd never seen before, and I really, really enjoyed it. So I would really stress to everybody, and I came from a different place this year than last year. Last year I didn't go to the Global Dressage Forum North America. When you're in Florida and down there every day, all day long working, and you're sort of immersed in it. But I will tell you, I think it was such a great use of our time to come down for this forum, and I won't miss it again. I thought it was really a cool, just take on dressage in the world and in North America, but there were coaches from the world, and I really felt like, I'm not kidding around, that it was a great use of our time. and we got a lot done and saw. So we'll continue as we go in these segments. We'll keep talking. If anybody is curious about a particular presentation, let us know. We'll go through it just sort of like we did this one. But it really was a great use of time. And next year, I would highly recommend putting it on your calendar to come, because I really enjoyed it. And it just gave us a good look around to lots of different trainers. So
a smorgasbord. Is that a word?
Smorgasbord.
That's a Swedish word. We talked to so many Swedish people.
Yeah, they were.
Smorgasbord of training and riding and
I will
aspects
say,
of horse.
The Swedes were and Tina Wilhelmsen Sylvan was also amazing. Those were probably my two favorite, and they're both Swedish, so they really took us by storm. And like I said, I wasn't sure what to expect with Jan Brink, but I think if anybody has an opportunity to see him in person, I would love to go to and see and ride in a clinic. I just thought he had some great firsthand knowledge. He was extremely organized on his presentation. It wasn't all over the map. He knew what he was talking about. I literally got the most notes by far from him on what was going on. So I really enjoyed it a lot.
Oh.
So
well, what do we got now? What do we got on the show? Our show. What is going on today?
I know. So that was our kind of our rundown of the Global Dressage Forum. But we are recording it as the last Thursday of the month or the third Thursday that we record. And our favorite Hillary Moore Hebert is coming on the show from Dressage Today. And we actually got a chance. We'd never met, Philip and I had never met Hillary in person. So we were able to spend some time with her, and then we went out to dinner. So we have a face to the name, and she's equally as awesome in person as she is on air. So after this commercial break, we're going to talk with Hillary Moore Hebert, Senior Editor of Dressage Today.
This Nutrition Minute is brought to you by Kentucky Performance Products, the company that simplifies your search for research-proven nutritional supplements at kppusa.com.
The horse that matters to you matters to Kentucky Performance Products. Feeding your horse starch-laden grains can lead to colic, laminitis, and metabolic disease. Today, nutritionists are recommending the use of high-quality fat to provide healthy calories. Fat is an extraordinary energy source. It's readily utilized by the horse and contains more than 2 times the calories of starchy grains. Replacing grain with a high-quality fat supplement reduces a horse's risk of developing health problems. Equijewel Stabilized Rice Bran is an excellent fat supplement. It contains a balanced calcium to phosphorus ratio and won't cause mineral imbalances when added to the diet. Its all-natural ingredients are high in healthy fat and fiber. And best of all, horses fueled by Equijewel stay calmer and more focused on the job at hand. When you need to add healthy calories to your horse's diet, choose Equijewel. To learn more, visit Kentucky Performance Products at kppusa.com.
This Nutritional Minute has been brought to you by Kentucky Performance Products. You can find all of their terrific products at kppusa.com.
Well, it is our pleasure to welcome Hillary Moore Hebert, Senior Editor of Dressage Today, and I am super happy to report that we have actually met in person. How are you, Hillary?
I am fantastic, although I was just joking with everybody that I did get a cold, and it's because where Reese, Phillip, and I was down in Wellington, Florida, and we were hanging out at the Global Dressage Forum North America, and I got a chance to go down for the magazine to cover a ton of things. So I was really excited to call you guys because it was awesome to finally meet you in person, but also share some of the other things I did outside of the forum that I thought were really neat.
You have a cool job. It's very
it sounds
cool.
pretty fun. I mean, you were super busy when you were down there, but...
and we stole you for dinner, had dinner with your mom and your client. It was super fun.
Yeah.
It was great.
Well, Hillary, and I was going to say the fantastic thing is, it's this great social media program that VitaFlex is actually sponsoring for us. And so because of that, we were able to do so much more than the magazine just on its own really would be able to do. So, the first thing that we were able to do that was really cool is they connected us up with Lisa Wilcox, who everybody knows is, one of the Olympic riders, and she also rides for VitaFlex. But I got to go and see her train her horse that she is working the Grand Prix with. So that was pretty awesome.
So can you tell us at all about it?
Yes, I can. So it was really interesting because she is obviously like high performance rider of high performance rider. It's not someone who has just a one-off horse. You see her coming back into the ring over and over again. And one of the things I saw that was really interesting, the way that they approach schooling the Piaffe and Passage, is really looking at each of the hind legs individually and seeing, is there an evenness to it? But very different. You wouldn't often look at trot, for example, collected trot, and say, is the left doing the same as the right hind? It's not as much of a thing that would come up, but they were very much looking at the evenness, saying in the Piaffe Passage, what's the left doing, what's the right every single stride, and how can we make sure those are even? And I thought seeing it in action with this world-class horse and world-class rider was really fascinating.
That is awesome.
Yeah, I mean, really, we talk about detail-oriented. I mean, that's right down to what I would call kind of the minutia of it when you're looking really at the evenness. And it's hard to tell a little bit in trot, but for sure it affects the way the horse comes down into Piaffe Passage because of the way, the trot is closely related to these things. So that's awesome. That's interesting.
Well, and I think that the idea also that you can become a skilled enough rider that conceptually the use of the aids, that the leg and the whip and, the seat are really timing, not only just say, okay, let's create more activity, but where in the horse's body are you creating that activity? And having the timing quick enough that you can kind of get the horse right as their left hind, for example, is coming up off the ground, and can you use your leg or tap with the whip and get them right at the moment to then encourage more energy to come out of that particular leg. And I find that really very fascinating, and I think it's an interesting thing that we kind of think about striving for when you talk about really good riding.
Yeah, I mean, that's something I came home with over the weekend after watching, a lot of great top riders and stuff. I mean, the timing, it comes down to being such an important part of good riding, and knowing, how much pressure to apply, when and where. All those, in really good riding, all those things come together in the exact right moment and time and amount of pressure to put everything together and get exactly what you want. Again, that's very, very, very detailed riding and coaching from the top level, and it should filter all the way down. That when we want to create good riders, that's such an important part, and to be someone also to be a trainer on the ground, you also have to develop your eye for timing. Because, lots of us have, a really good feel for timing. But if you're going to help somebody and help them do it right, then again, just really emphasizing that your eye is good. And again, that's why it's so great to be able to attend these things and develop not only good riding, but a good eye and good trainers.
So the next tip that I had that is from our tried and true columnist, Suzanne Von Dietz, and she gave us a neat tip that referred to technical riding at the more lower level. And she said that one of the most difficult transitions to ride is the canter to the sitting trot, because people think of it as a downward transition. But if you look at freestyles, for example, and you look at the beats per minute of the music, really the canter to trot becomes a quicker tempo, and the rider's body has to have a faster rhythm going into it, whereas we're kind of thinking, stop, slow down. You almost have to think the opposite. And I thought that was a really interesting thing to consider as you're riding the canter to sitting trot.
That's a really good, it is a very hard transition. I was doing it today with several students, and it's just, you really have to focus on it. And I think so many people collapse in that transition, and that makes it even harder. You really have to say, I've got to sit tall from my core. And I think that that's kind of the thing that I see the most. I don't know about you guys in that transition, but it's a really hard one, but one that you really need to practice.
Yeah, I think, oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say we were really, we saw Suzanne Von Dietz, and this is one of the points she brought up in her talk, and I thought that was something I'd never even thought about before. But for sure, the rhythm has to be a little quicker in the trot. So I mean, everybody's got to stop thinking of stopping the horse and start thinking of and speeding him up. That's where a little bit of the leg pressure, coming down from canter to trot is so important, that you have to bring the hind legs under a little bit quicker, because if they slow down and stick out the rear end of the horse, there's no way you're going to get a balanced uphill downwards transition, right? Which is so important. So I thought, that was a really nice take home for me from that.
And I think it's also interesting to think about, because I actually sometimes, conceptually think that the canter to sitting trot is almost more difficult sometimes than the passage piaffe, as we were talking about before, because it's not in the same, back to front. The canter is an asymmetrical gait with it being the 3 beats, and then to switch to the more symmetrical trot, you're really having to have a different motion in your pelvis, as well as maintaining the core and changing the rhythm in your body. So I think that it's a tricky thing to do.
I mean, at home, once we train the horses through the levels, I find myself riding almost always canter to walk and walk to canter. Once they're, past kind of second level and they've learned that, I hardly ever am riding canter to trot, because of course it's a kind of a discombobulated moment in the horses in the transition, can be very discombobulating, and you find that once the horse knows it, it's so much easier. Walk, canter, walk, and I mean, you can see it in the hunters and the jumpers. They almost always ride walk to canter and vice versa. So I have to remind myself, hey, this is a transition worth doing and worth doing well, and to focus on, even if the horse, is much further trained than that. So I try and mix it into the training program.
Yeah, I do it daily because it comes back in the intermediate 1. You don't see it from second level to intermediate 1, but it comes back in the intermediate 1, and it's in the Grand Prix after a very difficult movement on the center line. So you do your ones, and then you do your ones and then you do your trot, and it can be hard.
So the next tip I had was, now sort of going back to even more fundamental, I got a chance to sit down with Canadian David Marcus, and we had a really interesting talk about the warm-up, and I was fascinated to hear what you guys had to say, because I know that there's certain people who will go into movements pretty quickly, and they'll be riding the leg yield. They'll even do a soft, long half pass and really get the horses working. He said for him, he really doesn't do more than straight lines and nice round 20-meter circles with an eye on the quality, where he can have the horses, balance, is the rhythm there. And really he does very simple geometric patterns, but focuses on the quality. And I wanted to hear from you guys how you approach the warm-up, because I think it's one of the most difficult aspects of people to learn how to do properly.
Well, for the warm-up, and it's just like a warm-up at home, I really like to, make sure that the horse is relaxed, because in the show situation, of course, they're going to have all this extra energy and be all amped up and be looking around. So, just follow a relaxed program, even if the horse is stretching a little bit long and low, and make sure that I've got, a good connection and a horse that's ready to work, because there's definitely no advantage to, running into the warm-up and then, going through all the movements when the horse isn't really ready mentally to process what I'm asking. So, just like at home, I've got to just really ride every ride that it's got the components that I want, and build the blocks of relaxation and then rhythm, and and then the figures are the last thing. The figures will sort themselves out, I feel, a lot of times, if the horse is in the right place mentally first, and then physically, because we ride them, so much at home, and to be at a show and start to really ride, like, I'm not going to turn a 6 pirouette into an 8 at the showgrounds. I kind of know, you know what I mean? Like, what you've got, right? And if there's something I have to pay attention to, that I know, at home that I would really want to ride a little bit, then I would ride that, but not necessarily go in, and especially as you get more complicated in the movements and higher up in the levels, I can't be in there fixing problems. I've just got to trust my training a little bit and look after one or two things, but make sure I've got, a trot that's super adjustable, 3 gaits that are adjustable, and that the horse is, on the right lines, like riding, that they're not crooked and feeling weird that way. And that, just do a job to kind of coach them into the test and then ride the best test that I can, right? I mean, I see a lot of times where the riders really, in the warm-up running through the test, or running, one specific movement over and over. I've got to balance it out between riding a few movements, trying to put together a few movements, and saying, what you've got is what you got. So yeah, I think for sure, with the biggest marks in the test go to kind of harmony and quality of gaits rather than, of course you're going to lose marks if you're not also kind of detail oriented. But I think at home that's the time to really train the details and fix the little problems. At the show, I think you've got to keep your warm up short enough that you have energy in the test. I see that also a lot, like an hour warm up or 45 minutes warm up. Even if you have a hot horse, they're going to be tired and they're going to go into the ring a little tired, maybe a little behind your leg, and not showing you fresh, expressive gaits and just, kind of running through movement to movement to movement and getting downhill or getting even more tired. So I think you got to really, listen to your own horse, come into the show with a plan, and if you've got a horse that is gets a little bit tired fast, then don't do a whole lot, and if you don't, then not. I think we're all individuals, and the horses are individuals, so we've got to make our own warm up plans, and sometimes it takes going to a lot of shows to just figure out exactly what you need.
Yeah, and I think, the next tip and the last tip that I had very much relates to that. Grand Prix rider Devin Kane was talking about, her training philosophy, and a lot of it was her saying, I want accountability for myself and my horse. And I think what you were just saying really relates to that, because you want to spend every day making sure your horse is on to the aids, that you can get the things that you want from them, and that you're pressing yourself to ride correctly for those things. And so then you can go into the warm-up in the show ring and have those things because you already know that your horse is accountable, that you're accountable, and you're not kind of saying, okay, today is the day I'm really going to say, can I get the canter at sea, or, have I kind of been letting myself go a little bit at home, and this is the first time I'm really asking for it specifically at the letter, or can I really sit the trot properly, be accountable beforehand, so it's not a problem when you get to the show.
Yeah, I think that's exactly, and we got, we talked about it a little bit, but when you're riding every day, detailed riding, really exact, precise transitions and things like that, you're not going to have a problem in the test with it because the horse knows it. I think the biggest problem is just dealing with show nerves, right? Show nerves for the horse, show nerves for the rider. That's where the mistakes are made. They're not, of course, if you're not riding precisely at home, you're not going to be able to do it in the test for sure. And then you don't have the confidence at the show, and then that goes into your head, and you've got, is this going to, am I going to be able to halt at X? I mean, that's the first movement in every test is the hardest, a nice, clear, straight halt. If you don't ride that every day, if every day, some of the halts are okay and some are not okay, then you're going into the show ring questioning. I mean, I like to be going down that center line knowing I've trained this for 6 months or whatever. I mean, this is going to happen. Yeah. It's not a question, right? And like David said is really good because he's just ensuring that the gaits are quality, right? Yeah. The movements are there. The gaits have to be quality. The details of the transitions and of flying changes, for instance, if again, like a good flying change comes from a great canter, well, then you don't have to ride 10 lines of 2s or 10 lines of 4s or whatever level you're at. You just have to make sure, I've got good quality. Boom, changes will happen, right? That's what it comes down to.
And I think that's why he is currently ranked number 1 in Canada, because he is spot on to exactly what you're saying.
Well, Hillary, thank you so much. As always, you are our favorite guest of the month. We look forward to it every month, and it was so nice to meet you finally in person. How do our listeners find you online?
So I'm very excited because it's dressagetoday.com, but we have just got taken live our brand new website. And the feature that I want everybody to look for is you can now search by level. So if you are a first level rider and you click first level, all of the articles that come up will be filtered so it is suitable for your level. So
awesome.
Everybody should go and check that out.
Cool. Oh, I want to go. We'll do it right now. What a great thing. Cool. Well, I like it. So how do our listeners find you if they need to talk to you specifically?
They can go to the Contact Us on the new website. They can also reach us on our Facebook page. We also have a Twitter account and Pinterest, and you can just message us any of those places or contact us at dressagetoday.com.
Well, as always, that is one of our favorite segments from Hillary, and stay tuned for next month, and we'll talk to her again about what's happening at Dressage today. But Philip, we met a very cool person, Rachel Cabrera. She is a listener, and she has a great story to tell on how she met us over the weekend. So I hope you enjoy our talk with Rachel. Well, I am so excited about this next guest. We met Rachel at the Global Dressage North America meet and greet on Friday night, and she noticed and recognized me. I don't know if you noticed, Philip, but you recognized me and pulled me aside. So, Rachel, welcome to our show. You are our most loyal listener. I love it.
Well, howdy from Texas. Thank you so much for having me on. It was such a amazing surprise and delight to meet you and Philip in person. And I have to say that when I saw your face, I just beelined towards you, and I apologize for, I think I lightly assaulted you, but I was just so excited to finally see you and meet you that I couldn't wait to tell you hello and my story.
Well, I love it. No, you did not assault me. It was so cute. You're like, I have to talk to you. And I was like, okay, nobody ever has to talk to me. This is awesome.
I was really excited. I got a story. I have to tell you this. I was like, we never even met. You got a story. This is one of the most exciting parts of doing the radio show so far ever.
And he perked up like a superstar. It was amazing. I couldn't believe he did that.
It's fun.
So, Rachel, tell us your story, because it's awesome.
Well, apart from just meeting you guys for the first time at the meet and greet, I've listened to your show, at least a good year and a half now. I spend quite a bit of time in the car going to and fro, so it's a great way to kind of get the creative horse juices flowing on the way to the barn listening to your show. And about a year ago, I accepted a broad invitation you guys put out over the air to submit listener questions. And at the time, I was really toying with the idea of making the transition into being a professional horse person. I was working at an actual day job, a 9-to-5, and I just wasn't satisfied. And I really felt that maybe being in the horse world was something that I would want to do and I would be successful at. But I wanted to have the expert opinion that you guys have. And so I submitted my question. And the question went something like, you want to be a horse trainer. Where do you start? What should I do? What's your advice? And the reply from you and Philip was, it was interesting. It was not sugar-coated and very honest, very brutally honest, but absolutely what someone who has a question like that should hear. It was important information. But I think that anyone that doesn't have a lot of confidence about going into this would have been a little downtrodden. But I made a list. You gave me such great advice about education and business practices and some of the harsh realities that a horse trainer will face day to day. And I still have it in front of me, actually. I made a list of some of the issues that you brought up, and I answered them to the best of my ability and tore it up and ignored it and dove headfirst into horse training. And it's just been a wild ride ever since. So
okay, Rachel, hold on. I have to jump in here. I have to jump in this one.
We're so nervous.
So basically, Rachel, you asked for their advice. They told you to run for the hills, keep your day job, don't do this at all costs, and you completely ignored them and did it anyway.
That's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
That's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
That's what happened.
I don't listen to them either, Rachel. So we're good.
No, nobody does. Nobody listens to us.
Nobody really listens. Yeah. Well,
So,
that's good.
Rachel,
I mean, if you can listen to somebody say, "Hey, don't do it," and then you can, come up with still have reasons and motivation to do it, then great. I mean, I guess. So far, so good for you there, Rachel. Or what?
How's it going, Rachel?
Yeah. How is ignoring our advice?
It's going great. When you get your first client and you kind of do your first lesson, you think, oh my gosh, am I going to sound like an idiot? And you kind of find your way. I have several clients. I have several students. I'm just so proud and grateful that I get to wake up every day and go to a horse barn. So far so great. And then to cap it off with an experience with the Global Dressage Forum, I couldn't have asked for a better start to my career.
So before we start the Global Dressage Forum in North America, I do want to mention that Rachel did not mention that you actually do own a farm. No, you own a farm in Texas. You have a barn. Am I right?
Yes, I actually don't own it. The owner has literally handed me the reins, and I run a facility just north of Dallas, Fort Worth area.
Well, Rachel, tell us about your experience at the Global Dressage Forum North America and sort of Wellington in general.
Wow. First of all, Florida, Wellington is just amazing. It's beautiful without the horses, and then you sprinkle in these gorgeous horses and these brilliant minds to go with it, and riders. The riders are superb. I'm kind of a country mouse at heart, so that was a little bit of a trip to the big city for me, and just to see the whole spectacle and rub elbows with these amazing riders and trainers was just a little overwhelming. I can't believe that I got through it and didn't maybe faint at some point. But the forum was great. Having the first trip to Wellington, I've never seen so many beautiful polo riders in my life. I mean, if you're an eligible bachelorette, go to Wellington and date the polo players.
I'm going to tell you, that is bad advice. Do not listen to that. Bad advice. I'm going to say no on Rachel's advice on this one. I'm taking the reins. No polo players.
There was a spectacular event. The forum was just super, and I was just so excited to get to be there and really experience the whole thing.
So who was your favorite trainer? Which session did you get the most out of?
Oh my gosh. Okay. Definitely the favorite to watch was Tina Sylvan, and I believe her horse was Benetton. Is that right?
I think it was Benetton Dream.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yes. So I was feverishly taking notes through the entire forum. I didn't want to miss a thing. But when Tina was writing, you can't take your eyes off what a harmonious partnership they have. I just kept writing over and over again, super horse, fun, harmony, beautiful. So she was great to watch. The person I got the most from learning and listening and understanding was Mr. Conrad Schumacher. He really, he just broke it down and gave you good quality tidbits and building blocks for you to take home and insert at any point in your training. He's so positive and kind in his approach to the rider and the training. He keeps it so positive. And the way that he logically builds up, from the warm-up to beginning the higher movements and then keeping the relaxation and the understanding going through the entire session is just really brilliant. It's great for a new trainer like myself to hear and understand the way a good flow through a lesson should be.
And he really talked about Mr. Schumacher's lecture here was really talking about training riders versus training horses. So it's a little different approach.
Yeah.
And he's always said that, he says, I train riders, not horses. Horses will get hurt or, as we all know, things happen to horses, but your riding career continues. And so I've been lucky enough to train with him now 20 years, and he's right. And I'm very thankful and I even told him that when I saw him at the end, just how thankful I was that he takes that approach with his riders and, teaching you overall how to be a good rider. And in turn, he's made several good trainers. So I really appreciated that. So I also enjoyed his lecture for that very reason. So.
Yeah, I mean, I got that from a couple of the trainers there, this idea that there are thousands of horses in the world and and they have relatively short careers, but how many riders are there out there that have made Grand Prix horses, right? I mean, there's very few for all the thousands of horses that are out there. I mean, the more that trainers and people can pass along the knowledge to be able to make a Grand Prix horse, there'll be more Grand Prix horses out there or more well-trained horse. Not every horse can make it to Grand Prix, obviously, but we can do a service to all the horses out there by teaching well and just having good training and good basics and good riding, right? So I think Conrad was one, and Jan Brink as well. Like he's quit his international riding career to stay at home and train riders, young riders, junior riders, to make people that can to bring out the best in horses. I thought that was a really great message. So that was fun. That was good.
Yeah, and I think for all the trainers out there, we're all trainers here, and being able to do that is pretty cool. And there's a lot of rewarding things to training a really top, junior rider or even an adult amateur that achieves their goal. I mean, for me, I also really enjoy that. So I enjoyed that whole part of the symposium. Well, Rachel, it was so nice to meet you over the weekend, and you can even testify on how great a dancer Philip is. I'm just got to bring that up.
Philip is a phenomenal dancer. I really have to say, Philip, if this whole horse thing doesn't work out for you, you definitely have a career in dance for sure.
Well, it's nice to have options, right? It's nice to have options.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, we had a good time. We had a really good time after the symposium, so it was fun to meet you, and glad that we have a friend in Texas. So, Rachel, how do our listeners get a hold of you if they're looking for a trainer in Texas?
So I would direct people to my website, which is candcsporthorses.com.
Great. Well, just keep sending those listener questions. You never know what happens.
Oh, you know it. I'll keep you guys on your toes for sure.
So, Philip, our email shout-outs actually work.
Yeah, somebody she said she listened to the show, but she obviously didn't listen to the show because she didn't follow our instructions. But
she heard it. I mean, she heard it. She just didn't listen.
That's what I kind of like about it.
She heard what we were saying, but she
exactly.
Listening.
Oh, she took notes on what you were saying, and then she threw it all out.
She said, she was cute when we saw her at the first meet and greet that they had for the forum. She said, I listened to it, and then she's like, just because you guys said no, I said I was going to do it, and I was like, I like you already. You're cool. So she's very cool and really enjoyed spending some time with her. So we hope we get to meet more listeners. That was super fun. And that's why we do the show. And it was really rewarding to meet her and spend some time with her. So love that. Great. So please send us more emails and shout outs. And if you're ever around either Canada or Kentucky or anywhere that we're going to be, we would love to meet you. So don't be shy. Rachel wasn't shy at all. She about tackled me. She did about tackle me, but that's all good. I enjoyed that anytime.
It's fun to have stalkers, everyone.
Yes,
nice, awesome. Friendly stalkers.
Well, I had Philip.
Let me clarify that.
I had Philip with his strong muscles to push in front of me if necessary. I'm teasing you, Philip. That's not nice. Well, everybody, you can find our show notes and links to today's guest on our website, dressageradio.com. You can like us on Facebook. Just search Dressage Radio Show. Follow us on Twitter at Horse Radio. My website is maplecrestfarmky.com, and my email is reese@horseradionetwork.com.
You can find me at philipparksequestrian.com, and my email is philip@horseradionetwork.com. I'd like to thank Kentucky Performance Products for allowing us to put on a great show. And don't forget to check out all the other shows on the Horse Radio Network at horseradionetwork.com.
And next week, guys, is Para Week, so you guys will be back in 2 weeks.
Yes,
yeah,
and actually,
I think we've got some great guests lined up. We will. You have to wait until we can confirm all that, but we were talking to a lot of trainers, a lot of riders down in Florida, and we lined up everybody we could to come on the show and give us trainer tips and all kinds of fun stuff. So stay tuned.
Stay tuned. And I actually have a clinic with Conrad Schumacher next week, so I'm super lucky, and maybe we can snag him from another interview to talk about his experience at the Global Dressage Forum North America. So everybody, keep your heels down and your shoulders back. And if you're anywhere in the Midwest, don't get blown away tonight because we have a bad storm coming through again. So talk to you soon.